I spent 10 years in an orphanage before suddenly gaining parents. But after bringing me home, instead of giving me the love and care I deserved, they treated me as if I had taken advantage of being their adopted daughter. They were cold and harsh towards me. They even forced me to give up everything I had to their biological daughter. My postgraduate study opportunity, my thesis, and even my first love. In the end, I was left with nothing. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I didn't want to fight for anything anymore. I would give everything to her, even these parents. In this life, I just want to live for myself. 1. I was reborn. Reborn to the day when my biological parents forced me to give up my guaranteed admission to a prestigious university so that their adopted daughter, Sienna, could take my place. I had grown up in an orphanage until I was 10 years old when my birth parents adopted me. I thought I would have a happy family, but it turned out that my parents had another adopted daughter, Sienna. Sienna was afraid that I would take away her resources after returning home, so she competed with me everywhere. And my parents, always feeling guilty, sided with Sienna. For more than 10 years, I was always the loser, the outsider. Violet, you know Sienna is an orphan. Unlike you who has everything, so maybe you can. Dad hesitated a bit, but under Mom's urging, he finished his sentence. Can you give the guaranteed admission to Sienna? Although they looked a little guilty, their attitude was very firm. I looked coldly at my biological parents, as if it were a world away. When Mom saw that I didn't react, she pushed my dad. Dad's face turned cold instantly, and he scolded me in a low voice. Violet, it's true that you are our biological daughter, but Sienna is also our adopted daughter, who we've raised since she was a child. After you came back, you took her place, so out of morality, you should give the spot to her. Took her place? Haha, what a funny word. I wonder if they gave me the name Violet and hoped that I would come home. Did they ever think there would be a day like this? In my previous life, I gave up my guaranteed admission under such coercion. Just because I was the biological daughter, I had to feel guilty about everything to Sienna and give everything to her. I was angry, I cried, and I argued. And then, my parents contacted our advisor in private. They casually gave me a false accusation and gave the spot to Sienna. They didn't even tell me about it. It wasn't until the list of guaranteed admissions was released in the class group that I realized I had been betrayed by my parents. I cried and asked them why they sacrificed my future for Sienna. They replied indifferently while cutting fruit for Sienna. Anyway, you can still get in if you take the exam. Why do you need that guaranteed admission? They were so partial to Sienna, but I had to spend an entire year reviewing to make up for it. I reviewed from dawn till dusk and memorized words in front of the dormitory door in the wind and snow. However, I finally got into graduate school, but Sienna was about to be expelled due to poor grades. So they asked me to hand over the thesis I had stayed up all night writing to Sienna to publish. I didn't want to. They contacted the school again to manipulate things behind the scenes, and I had to face the questioning of my tutor. I still remember the disappointed look on my tutor's face, as if I were the one who was lazy and unwilling to do a good job on the project, a poor student. In my previous life, I didn't understand at all. I didn't need to regret these things at all. What can be easily taken away never belonged to me, and what truly belonged to me was my ability, my knowledge. These had been deeply imprinted in my brain, and Sienna could never take them away. So this time, I wouldn't dwell on these external things. Faced with my parents pressing, I said lightly, "Okay, I give up this spot." Mom was stunned. She thought I would make a fuss as usual. She smiled at me kindly. "Violet, be a good girl." After that, she gestured for my dad to go to the study and get me a gift. It was the violin I had always wanted. In my previous life, they thought it was too expensive and were unwilling to buy it for me no matter what. This time, in order to get me to compromise, they were willing to spend a lot of money. Holding the heavy violin, I felt an endless irony. 2. It was winter again. I braved the bitter cold wind to go to the library to study. The library's heating was insufficient, and my hands were often so cold I couldn't write. I gritted my teeth and soaked my hands in hot water. I wrote the formulas I had written countless times in my previous life countless times again. Only occasionally, I would take my violin out of its case, wipe it carefully, and play a piece to comfort myself. When I was in the orphanage, the teachers there often taught me to play the violin, and they always praised me for being a good prospect for music. But after I was adopted, because Sienna was so neurotic, I stopped playing at my parents' advice. The original violin had long since disappeared, so I cherished the new one very much. But before I had a chance to practice much, Sienna broke it. She borrowed it under the pretext of wanting to learn, then took my violin away. I begged her to be careful, but as soon as she got the violin, she broke a string. I was startled and hurried to get the violin back. The next second, she panicked and dropped the violin to the ground. The violin shattered into pieces instantly. Her hand was also cut by the string. Sienna covered her hand and cried pitifully, saying tearfully that she would definitely help me fix it. In fact, we both knew it couldn't be repaired. But I still nodded and said, "Okay." She was stunned, probably not expecting me to even give a hypocritical refusal. Afterwards, Sienna squatted down to tidy up the broken violin, and her fingertips pressed against the strings. The next moment, her hand was cut open in several places. Mom came over when she heard the noise. Seeing Sienna's bloody hands, she pointed at me viciously and said, "It's just a broken violin. Why do you have to hurt Sienna's hands before you're satisfied? Violet, when will you ever grow up and stop acting like a child?" I was acting like a child. She never thought about how much I cherished this violin, and she never thought that Sienna had broken it on purpose. She could see Sienna's bleeding fingers, but she couldn't see my bleeding heart. Forget it. Violet, you shouldn't have expected anything from Mom. I smiled and said to Sienna, "You're bleeding, so don't clean it up." Sienna's eyelashes trembled slightly, and with a hint of crying she said, "It's my fault. I insisted on playing your violin. I'll go work part-time to buy you a new one." She, a young lady who never did any manual labor, would go work part-time? I couldn't help but laugh. Your health isn't good, and Mom will feel sorry for you if you work part-time. In the end, you'll still blame me. Sienna, you wouldn't want to see such a scene, would you? Sienna and my mom were both stunned. Mom's face darkened. Violet, how dare you talk to your sister like that? Did you learn this in school? You've been studying until you've forgotten everything. I think you should stop your postgraduate studies and find a job to pay for this violin. Hearing this, I calmed down a lot. It's my fault. How can a dead thing compare to my sister? It's my fault for not taking good care of the violin. In the end, it's still because I'm immature and acting like a child. It's just a broken violin, and I'm making my sister work part-time for it. Don't worry, I'll fix this violin myself. It's not my sister's fault, it's my fault. My mother's originally angry expression became a little at a loss. She opened her mouth and then swallowed her words again. And I didn't want to get caught up in this argument with a predictable outcome. So I smiled slightly at them and went into the room. Sitting at the desk, the tears I had been holding back for a long time finally fell. As I wiped away my tears, I put on my headphones. Don't cry, Violet, don't cry. The mechanical voice of the English listening comprehension in the headphones reminded me repeatedly. I need to study. I need to leave here. I can buy my own violin too. Everything will be all right. 3. As expected, I topped both the preliminary and the final exams for my postgraduate studies. Since long before filling out the application form, my parents had forced me and Sienna to apply to the same university under the pretext of helping each other. And my abilities were more than enough for her school. As for resistance and struggle, I had done that in my previous life. The result was predictable, so I could only compromise. Perhaps because I was so obedient and well-behaved this time, my parents finally felt a little guilty. I could keep the money I earned from tutoring during the summer vacation. This was a rare privilege. You know, most of the money I earned from part-time jobs after high school had to be turned in to buy Sienna dresses and bags. Before school started, my dad held my hand and said solemnly that I could use this money to buy another violin. I said nothing and nodded obediently. It was as if we were really a loving family. But Dad, I'm not as stupid as I was in my previous life. During the winter break of my first year of graduate school, Sienna squandered all her living expenses. She had always pretended to be a rich girl in front of her classmates, So even though she knew she didn't have enough money for the fare home, she still followed others on a trip. When it was time to buy a plane ticket home, she was dumbfounded. I silently suggested that I could split my fare with her, but we would both have to take the train. The train is so disgusting, it's full of those smelly workers. She covered her nose and refused. In the end, Sienna chose to stay at school, lying that she had to do a project and would go home a few days later. After all, she always loved to compare herself with me. And if she let her parents know that she couldn't go home because she had squandered all her money, where would she put her face? So, Sienna could only bear it all herself and find a way to raise the fare. But she was used to a luxurious life and wouldn't humble herself to work part-time. The only thing she could think of was to have her boyfriend pay for her. Coincidentally, her boyfriend broke up with her at this critical moment. Sienna was dumbfounded. When she realized it, the tickets were already sold out. She cursed her boyfriend while calling her parents pitifully for help. "Mom and Dad, there's no one else in the dormitory. I'm so scared. The dorm aunt said they're going to cut off the water and electricity in a few days. And the cafeteria is also closed. What should I do?" On the phone, the helpless cry tore my parents' hearts apart. They realized something was wrong. Dad angrily kicked open the door to my room and asked me what was going on. Looking at the obviously dented door panel, I calmly told the truth. "You beast!" My dad slapped me hard and kicked me to the ground. I fell apart, and everything on my desk smashed into me. Even my head hit the leg of the desk. My head hurt so much that I couldn't think for a while, and the menstrual pain made it even worse. Mom hurriedly stopped Dad, who was about to kick me again, but she didn't mean to help me up either. "Why did you hit her?" Mom asked, displeased. Dad glared at me. "Since you know Sienna has no money to go home, why don't you give Sienna that money? Have you always felt that she took your place? If you have any grievances, come to us. Why are you bullying Sienna?" I smiled helplessly. If I had bought her a plane ticket, I would be the one staying at school now. My dad was furious. "You're so good at lying. It's different if we didn't raise you from childhood. Sienna is much better than you. I know you earned 10,000 yuan from your part-time job. How could you not afford 2 plane tickets? I think you did it on purpose." I pouted and looked at my mom, and my mom looked embarrassed. My dad continued to scold. "I wish you had died in the orphanage. Although Sienna is not our biological child, she is much better than you. You ungrateful thing." My mom tugged at Dad's sleeve and interrupted him. "She doesn't have much money." Dad thought Mom was going to speak up for me, and angrily threw Mom's hand away. How could she not have money? When have we ever given her less tuition and living expenses? Plus the money from her part-time job. How could she not save any? I think she's just vain. She just knows how to spend money, so she can't even save a penny. I smiled wryly. He didn't mention a word about Sienna spending money on travel. I didn't say anything, and looked at my mom again. My mom sighed softly and said slowly, "Don't say it anymore. Violet's tuition and living expenses are all paid by herself." 4. Dad was stunned, probably not expecting the truth to be like this. But his authority never allowed me to challenge it. So even if he had to put on a brave face, he had to. He quickly changed his expression back to anger, justifying himself. It was just that he seemed a little less confident. "She's so grown up, shouldn't she pay for her own tuition and living expenses? Besides, isn't there a scholarship? She can save some money too. What about your scholarship?" "Her scholarship isn't much, and besides..." "Don't speak for her. Doesn't she have a scholarship of 3,000? And she can't even afford 2 plane tickets." Mom grabbed Dad and took a deep breath, saying, "Violet's scholarship is always turned in, and she only keeps a little. The last time you bought supplements, it was paid for with Violet's scholarship. Yes, most of my scholarship went to the family. It was the same in both my previous and current lives. Except that in my previous life, it was my mom who cried poor and forced me to hand it over. This time it was voluntary. Every time I got a scholarship, I would give 4/5 of it to my mom, so she could buy Dad something to supplement his health, or add a little to Sienna's living expenses, to make up for their guilt towards Sienna. At that time, my mom even praised me for finally being sensible and treating Sienna as my own family. In fact, I just didn't want her to find various reasons to force me to give money to Sienna. A round-trip ticket home cost $1,500. For Sienna, it was only half a month's living expenses, but I had saved for a whole 4 months. I saved up for 4 months for a ticket home, only to return to a home that didn't expect me to come back. An adopted daughter who was treated like a biological daughter. A biological daughter who was treated like an adopted daughter. When I was in the orphanage, I often fantasized that one day, my biological parents would, as they did in the movies, excitedly take me home, put the prettiest puffy dress on me, and spoil me like a princess. So I waited day after day, year after year, through spring and autumn, through winter and summer. In the end, I waited for a pair of parents who forced me to give everything to their adopted daughter. No puffy dress, no pampering, only daily scolding and coercion. I would rather never have met them, rather never have come to this home. This is not my home, it is Sienna's family's home. Dad stood there for a long time, frowning, with no intention of apologizing. To me, he was always stern. Only Sienna could make him a kind and loving father. What else could I expect? I looked at him, my expression calm. I'm sorry, Dad, if there's a next time, I'll definitely give all the money to Sienna. After all, they wanted Sienna back more than me. Mom frowned, still a little dissatisfied. Violet, Dad's words were a bit harsh, but a family doesn't hold grudges overnight. Your dad also hopes that the two of you sisters can help each other. You talk to your dad in this tone. It's not respectful to your elders at all. If you had told us earlier, would things have gotten to this point? If you don't change your personality, you're going to suffer. This is all your own fault. Look for reasons in yourself. Don't always blame this or that, and feel that we have wronged you. We have tried our best to treat you and Sienna equally. 5. Equal treatment? I stopped in my tracks. A lump formed in my throat. What a ridiculous phrase. Well, they would never admit their mistakes. Fortunately, I had long known what kind of people they were. I turned on my phone's recording function. Mom and Dad, Sienna went on a trip and spent all her money. She can't afford a plane ticket home. Not because she has a project. Can you transfer some money to her? Otherwise, she won't be able to buy a ticket. My tone was calm and sincere. But my parents were like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. My mom said, Violet, how dare you slander her? We've known Sienna since she was a child, and we know exactly what kind of person she is. My dad chimed in, that's right. Sienna is always measured in what she does. Look, here's a screenshot of her plane ticket. She even showed it to us. I glanced at it. The screenshot was sent to their 3-person chat group. I tried to explain, but they wouldn't give me a chance. They even gossiped about me in their small group with Sienna. After listening to the recording, the atmosphere froze for a moment. Suddenly, Dad regained his composure and scolded angrily. We didn't hear it before. Why didn't you say it a few more times? You're so arrogant, you dare to catch your parents' handle. I see you're young, but you have a pretty deep mind. How could I have a daughter like you? Get back to your room and reflect. When you know you're wrong, then come out. I turned and went back to my room. Then I heard them whispering and packing. I didn't need to think to know they were going to find Sienna. There was no message, no living expenses, and the refrigerator was empty. In my friend circle, Sienna was posting photos of their family of 3 having a big meal, while I was eating instant noodles soaked in cold water, one mouthful after another. Sienna captioned, Unexpectedly, my parents came all the way to school to accompany me. I hope we can all be happy and healthy in the new year. Outside, fireworks exploded one after another brilliantly, but my room had been without electricity for a long time because my parents forgot to pay the bill. I was like a rat peeking at other people's happiness through a shop window. In previous years, I could still share a little of their family's happiness. But not this year. But it doesn't matter. I don't care. 6. In my second year of graduate school, Sienna was on the verge of being expelled due to excessive absences and poor grades. After my parents contacted her advisor, they learned that if she had a paper published in a well-known journal, the matter could be resolved. Coincidentally, I had such a paper. My parents immediately turned their attention to me. Violet, give the paper to Sienna. If she doesn't graduate, you don't graduate either. My dad didn't even bother to pretend this time. His tone was cold, and there was no room for negotiation. My mom was cooking and stood with my dad. Since our last big fight, they've had a worse opinion of me. They finally realized that they just wanted to focus all their energy on Sienna, and me, their biological daughter, was dispensable. For a year since then, my parents had never contacted me or cared about my life or death. It wasn't until Sienna caused another trouble that they contacted me to clean up her mess. Of course I agreed. They got the paper I wrote and gave it to Sienna. Sienna happily showed it off everywhere, strolling around campus with her parents. I looked at the happy family of 3 and felt numb. At this moment, my shoulder was tapped. "What are you looking at, Violet, so engrossed?" It was Alfie. He was my childhood friend from the orphanage, and he would stand up for me when I was bullied. He once vowed to marry me when he grew up. In my previous life, I believed him and gave him everything. As a result, he fell in love with Sienna. Following my gaze, Alfie saw Sienna's graceful back. "Oh, that's your adopted sister. She's quite pretty." I nodded. He continued, "I didn't expect her to be so amazing. She's beautiful and she writes good papers." I said expressionlessly, "I wrote her paper." He frowned. "What?" I chuckled and briefly explained the situation. Alfie was indignant. "How can there be such a person? She's already a cuckoo in the nest, and now she's bullying you. Don't worry, Violet, they're not good to you. I'll be good to you in the future." He grabbed my hand and tried to be attentive. I silently pulled my hand away. He pouted. "We've known each other since we were kids, and you still don't trust me? Why don't you want to be with me?" Seeing that I didn't respond, he threw his hand away in self-deprecation. "Forget it anyway. It's been 10 years since I've been chasing you, and it will be 20 years if I keep chasing you. No matter what, I won't give up." If I hadn't had the painful experience of my previous life, I might have found him sincere and cute. Unfortunately, I smiled at him and said, "Why don't you add Sienna on WeChat first? Maybe I'm not what you imagine me to be now." Without giving him a chance to question, I turned and left. The next day, as soon as I came out of the classroom, Alfie ran up and hugged me. "Violet, I didn't expect you to have such a hard time after being adopted. Since your parents don't love you, I love you. I will love you forever." Sienna, who was always scheming, knew she couldn't hide it. It's better to be a good person and pretend to be helpless. She pushed all the blame onto my parents, as if we were really just victims of our parents' partiality, but she didn't mention her own hypocrisy. Alfie's words were exactly the same as in my previous life, so sincere that I was almost moved. If only I didn't know that he would fall hopelessly in love with Sienna later. In the previous life, Alfie stood on the same side as Sienna, treating me as the bad woman who was jealous of the adopted daughter and wanted to take everything away. The childhood friendship, the heartfelt promises, seemed so insignificant under Sienna's grievances and innocence. "Alfie, why don't we make a bet?" Alfie frowned and asked me what bet. I smiled and said, "You have lunch with Sienna for 3 months, and if you still like me after 3 months, we'll be together." He was clearly dissatisfied. "You don't trust me. Do you think I'll fall in love with Sienna? Do you think I'm that kind of person in your eyes?" I blinked and smiled innocently. "Since you think you won't change your mind, why don't you dare to bet with me?" "Who said I dare not?" Alfie pretended to be tough. "It's just having lunch for 3 months. Since you want to test me, then I'll prove to you that I won't change my mind about you." He was determined, as if my words were a great insult to him. Before leaving, he emphasized, "If I do it, don't go back on your word." I nodded, finding it a little funny. And not long after, Sienna came to me and said she had a crush on Alfie for a long time, and asked me to give Alfie to her. She looked so sincere that I was almost moved. But she didn't really like Alfie. She just wanted to take him away because Alfie liked me, just like she took away my parents' love. I didn't expose her and readily agreed. "I'll let him have lunch with you." Since they were a match made in heaven, I naturally had to help them. 7. In my 3rd year of graduate school, I had gotten used to earning my own living and tuition. Because of my excellent grades and rich experience, I received an offer from an overseas listed company in advance. When my parents found out, they asked me to contact the company's HR to see if Sienna could be brought along. Before I could respond, Sienna refused. If she went with me, she would have to face the relationship between me and her subordinate. How could a proud person like her be willing to work under me? She would rather always step on my head. Moreover, her relationship with Alfie was not completely stable, and if she went abroad at this juncture, she might as well reconnect with Alfie. So she preferred to stay in the country and spend time with Alfie. While I was preparing my materials to go abroad, Alfie came to question me about why I was going abroad without him. I looked at his angry face and showed him the video of him hugging Sienna. They were whispering in the school park. Alfie passionately kissed Sienna on the lips and promised that he would never leave her. Facts speak louder than words. But Alfie still refused to give up and argued with me. I was just comforting her. She's actually quite pitiful. When you're sad, Violet, don't you want someone to comfort you? Put yourself in my shoes. Can you bear to push her away? I just wanted to laugh. When does comforting someone require kissing? Seeing that I didn't care, Alfie gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, since you don't trust me, I'll delete her now." With that, he immediately blocked Sienna's WeChat. The next second, Sienna's phone called at the right time. Alfie hesitated for a moment before answering. "Alfie, what did I do wrong? Don't leave me like this, okay?" Sienna's sobbing voice came from the other end of the phone. Alfie pretended to be angry and warned the other side. "Sienna, let's not contact each other anymore. I only like Violet." Sienna's sobbing immediately amplified. "After all, you are my first love, and I am the one who intervened. I have nothing now. My parents are not my biological parents, and now you don't want me either. I don't want to live alone." With a beep sound, the phone was hung up urgently. Alfie was visibly nervous. "Sienna, Sienna," he called out to the other end of the phone anxiously, but there was no response. He hurriedly ran to Sienna's dormitory, while I remained where I was. "Sienna might be in trouble. Aren't you going to check it out?" I lowered my head to organize my documents and replied indifferently, "You go ahead." Alfie swept the documents on my desk to the ground and squeezed my face hard. "Violet, you're so cold-blooded. Even if Sienna isn't your biological sister, you've been together for more than 10 years. How can you just watch her die?" My face was flushed red from being pinched, but my tone remained calm. "If you're worried about her, go find her." Alfie hesitated for a moment. "Then what about the bet you made earlier?" I smiled and said, "Of course it counts." He slowly released his hand, looked at me hesitantly for a few seconds, and then ran away. The fire engine and the police car both came. Sienna had been blowing the wind on the balcony for half an hour, and finally she didn't dare to jump. But she had to pretend. The moment Sienna saw Alfie appear, she feigned weakness and fell into Alfie's arms. She weakly reached out and touched Alfie's face. "Alfie, you're finally here." The back of her hand was full of scars, not deep, but enough to fool people. Alfie held Sienna's hand and comforted her patiently. "Don't be afraid, Sienna. I won't leave you alone in the world. I'll be with you." I stood not far away and watched all this silently. My heart was completely calm. 8. Soon, my parents received news of Sienna's suicide attempt. Without any investigation, they concluded that I had forced Sienna to harm herself and end her life. They thought I was beyond redemption, and that if I continued like this, I would definitely kill Sienna. So they made a PPT of my spotless record and posted it online to try to warn me. For a time, public opinion was in an uproar. Various self-media and marketing accounts reposted it frantically, and it became a hot topic overnight. I received endless insults and curses from netizens day and night. The school forum was also overwhelmed by the condemnation. Netizens strongly demanded that the school expel me, this sister-killing mistress. Yes, with my parents' embellishment, I became that mistress. The school didn't want to be so ruthless, but my parents were adamant and forced the school to expel me. Amidst the shouts of "bitch," I calmly started a live broadcast. As soon as I showed my face, the live broadcast screen was filled with bullet screens. I calmly displayed the documents I had prepared one by one in front of the netizens. There were recordings of them forcing me to give up my postgraduate study place to Sienna, chat records of them forcing me to take Sienna abroad, and videos of Sienna and Alfie hugging each other, and more. Sienna, a graduate student in the finance department of JB University in 2023, is my parents' adopted daughter. Since my parents recognized me, she has been competing with me everywhere, snatching my postgraduate study place, stealing my papers, and my parents are her biggest accomplices. Alfie, you failed to pursue me at first, and then you got together with Sienna. In terms of who came first, Sienna is the mistress. I was reluctant to care about you because we grew up together, but you are two-hearted and a sea king, and your mistress is shameless and loves to intervene. You two are a perfect match for bullying me. How could I be worthy of you? My parents, my biological parents, are going to force me to drop out of school and ruin me for this adopted daughter again, so as to make way for their beloved adopted daughter. I am the real victim who has been bullied since childhood. After saying these words, my hands were trembling. Every word was heart-wrenching. My phone kept ringing, and I guess my family of 3 had already seen my live broadcast. When I finished speaking, the bullet screen started to refresh again in batches. I didn't expect the reversal to be like this. These parents are also weird. They don't care about their biological daughter, but they cherish an adopted daughter. I am a roommate of the person involved, and I can testify about the paper. That day, the whole internet was filled with Sienna's academic fraud, grabbing postgraduate study places, and being a mistress. My parents, Alfie, had their addresses and phone numbers exposed, and the teacher who had colluded with my parents in the dark was thoroughly investigated. After so many years, I finally won this time. 9. After that, my parents were so scolded by netizens that they dared not go out. Their work unit, unable to bear the disturbance, dismissed them both. They blamed me for everything and called me every day to scold me. I just blocked them. As for Sienna, academic fraud is also a serious crime. Before she could leave the hospital, she was expelled by the school. In the past, she had been arrogant in school with her persona as a beautiful scholar, and everyone worshipped her as a goddess. This time, she fell from the altar and was inevitably backstabbed by a group of people. The school's forums were filled with ridicule of her. Sienna is so disgusting, an adopted daughter who so brazenly sucks the blood of the real daughter. I see her traveling everywhere every day. Where does she have time to write papers? I see, it turned out to be written by Violet. That's right, her academic conduct is not upright, and her personal conduct is not upright either. And she even steals other people's pursuers. I don't know if Sienna saw these comments, but I was very happy. I also didn't want to get entangled with them anymore, and I just wanted to leave this sad place quickly. On the day I went to the airport, my phone was filled with blessings from classmates and teachers. Violet, you have unlimited possibilities in your future, come on. Violet, your hard work and forbearance will be rewarded. Don't forget us when you get rich. I tried to hold back my tears, but I couldn't. It turned out that I could also get so much kindness. After being bullied by my parents for so many years, I hadn't heard so many blessings for a long time. The taxi to the airport arrived, and I was about to get in. Alfie appeared in front of me. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was ferocious. He walked towards me and slapped me hard. He said fiercely, "Violet, how vicious you are. If you want revenge, you can just revenge on your parents. What does it have to do with Sienna? You have everything, but what about Sienna? She's just an orphan. Why do you have to push her to this point?" I tilted my head, my face burning. "Are you finished? When you're done, I'll go," I replied calmly to him and reached out to hail another car. Suddenly, Alfie grabbed me again, his expression somewhat pitiful. "Violet, didn't you say that as long as I didn't like Sienna, you would be with me?" For a moment, I thought this person was a little schizophrenic. One second he was indignant for Sienna, and the next second he wanted to be with me. Forget it, someone like this isn't worth my thinking too much about. There will be plenty of opportunities to get back at him later. I shook him off and quickly jumped into a passing car and drove away. 10. After the plane landed, I moved into the apartment prepared by the company. The company offered me a generous annual salary. The first second I got my salary, I bought a ticket to the symphony orchestra. Watching the violinist play freely on stage, I couldn't help but cry. Maybe they weren't the best orchestra, but I heard the sound of freedom. After the performance, I wandered around and tried all the local delicacies. Then, in a century-old store, the owner personally selected a beautifully toned violin for me. My colleagues were surprised that I could play the violin. I told them it was a life I was forced to give up. Every time I played a note, my heart was filled with satisfaction. I no longer had to eat instant noodles soaked in cold water. I no longer had to give up the violin because of Sienna's mental breakdown. I have everything with my own hands. I have a free life without being oppressed or insulted. I no longer have to give up my things. Everything I hold with my hands belongs only to me. 11. For 10 years, I worked hard to become a manager of the company, and then I started my own business and opened a listed company. If I didn't need to expand the domestic market, I would never have dreamed of stepping on this homeland again. Now that I'm back, I naturally have to go and see those old acquaintances. I bought some health products and fruits and visited my biological parents. Stepping on high heels behind that dilapidated anti-theft door, I never realized that my former home was so narrow. When my parents opened the door and saw me, they both looked panicked. There was a foul smell coming from the room, as if it hadn't been cleaned for a long time. "What are you doing here? Get out. Ungrateful bitch. We don't have a daughter like you. You've made our family fall apart. How dare you come back? You might as well die outside." They threw the gifts at my face hard. I calmly straightened my hair and smiled, saying, "I didn't really mean to come to your door. I just wanted to show you how good I am now." I wasn't sad at all. I wasn't the same Violet I was 10 years ago. I came back just to let them know how good the daughter they despised is now, and the one they held in the palm of their hands turned out to be a waste. My father coughed in anger and reached out to hit me. Sienna's voice came from the corridor below. Even after so long, I couldn't forget her disgusting tone. "Dad, Mom, who are you talking to?" What came into view was a middle-aged woman with a fat figure and rough makeup. Sienna and I looked at each other and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. Are you Violet?" A disbelieving voice came from the other party. I finally believed that the woman in front of me was Sienna. She was much uglier than before. How did you become so beautiful?" Sienna felt a little inferior and didn't dare to look directly at me. I straightened my cuff and said lightly, "Thank you, you've changed a lot too." She was choked by me, but still pretended to be calm and said, "Why don't you come in and sit down?" My parents hurriedly pushed me. I see if she dares to take a step inside. I turned and left, and bumped into a weather-beaten man. The visitor was Alfie. As soon as he graduated from graduate school, he married Sienna. He changed less than Sienna, but you could also see from his face that he was not living a good life. He was as surprised to see me as I was to see him. Seeing that I was about to leave, Alfie hesitated for a moment and said he would see me downstairs. "Violet, I'm relieved to see you doing so well. I feel really guilty about you all the time." "Guilty? He deserves to be guilty of me." I kept a distance from him impassively. "It's okay, I've forgotten all about it. Seeing that you are also doing well, I am also relieved." His face changed, and he sighed deeply. "I'm not doing well at all. Sienna is too bad-tempered, and she's also spoiled. She forces me to make money every day. She doesn't work herself, and she spends money lavishly. She hits and kicks me at every turn. I'm really under a lot of pressure." I raised my eyebrows and asked deliberately when I saw the people behind me, "So do you regret marrying Sienna?" He excitedly grabbed my hand. "I regret it so much. If we could have been together at the beginning, I believe we could have lived better. How could I not have seen through Sienna like this at that time? Violet, give me another chance, okay? I can get a divorce. I was wrong before, I was blind. Violet, I really miss you." While apologizing, he slapped himself. It was too pretentious. "What about the child you and Sienna have?" "It doesn't matter. Sienna and her parents will raise the child. I promise I won't have anything to do with them." "Really? Sienna, did you hear that?" Alfie trembled all over. Sienna stood behind him with a furious face. She punched and kicked Alfie in the head, and Alfie was completely overwhelmed. "You bitch, you pretended to be weak and innocent to get married, and now you have the face to blame me. You have the nerve to say that. I just knew you couldn't forget that bitch Violet." 12. I watched this comical scene quietly for a while, and then got back in the car with satisfaction. My assistant brought me a freshly brewed coffee, and as I rolled down the window, I couldn't help but look up. Sure enough, my parents were standing at the window, watching me silently. I calmly raised the coffee in my hand to them. They angrily pulled the curtains closed. I wonder if they regret choosing Sienna over their biological daughter now. Not long after, Alfie contacted me. I just treated him as a clown playing for fun. Unexpectedly, he took it seriously and was actually willing to divorce Sienna for me. He had no parents and no ties, so it didn't matter if he left everything behind. After I inadvertently revealed my address to him, he traveled thousands of miles to find me. After he left Sienna with a huge gambling debt to repay. Sienna was so sad and angry that she wanted to commit suicide. When my parents saw this scene, they were both so angry that they had a stroke and were paralyzed. As for Alfie, he couldn't contact me, of course. The address I left him was just a property I was about to rent out. As for where I lived, it was heavily guarded, and there was no way he could get in. We will never meet again. A few years later, Sienna contacted me and cried to me that after Alfie came to find me, he was tricked into a scam and his whereabouts are unknown. My parents also died of a stroke not long after. She contacted me this time to ask me to pay for my parents' funeral. I silently refused. She cried miserably. "Violet, why are you so cruel? They are your biological parents." Biological parents? When they forced me to give you everything I had, they were no longer my parents. If only they had been a little nicer to me. If only they hadn't been so partial to Sienna. If only they had left me a little room at the end. I didn't want to think about it anymore. And Sienna, she was originally a cuckoo in the nest, who took away all the attention and love of her parents. She deliberately guided my parents to hurt me, so why should she scold me for being cold-blooded now? I deleted her, along with all the twists and turns and resentment of my past life. I deleted it all cleanly. As time passed, I found myself standing on the podium of my alma mater, giving a speech as an outstanding graduate. Looking at the crowd of freshmen, I spoke slowly. I know many of you are not happy with what you are going through right now, and life has disappointed you a lot. You really want to escape this painful time, but I believe that dark times will always pass. Just grit your teeth and hold on for a while, and maybe the road ahead will be bright. When you look back then, you will be surprised to tell yourself that you are glad you persevered. Fortunately, I persevered. Fortunately, I never gave up on myself. Fortunately,